Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's episode of Reclaiming Perception. So delighted to have as my guest tonight Shane Gibbs. So welcome Shane.
Hello Joe, nice for you to invite me onto your show.
Well, I wanted to give a little sort of introduction of why I've invited you on. Anybody who watched my show last week, I had a lady called Charlie Seven on, amazing lady, who has undergone the label of targeted individual, but as you said before, we like to say targeted survivors.
Indeed we do.
Because the people who go through this stuff and are coming out the other side and actually bringing out this validation and proof are survivors and very, very strong people. Now, I saw you had a YouTube channel, and what drew me to you, you mentioned something about Brian Harvey, so I'd like to go there at some point in the interview.
No, you crack on, yeah? You go where you want to go.
But most of the interview, what I like to do with my guests is get my guests to introduce who you are, a bit of background about, just why you're in the situation you're in right now, and we'll just let the conversation freestyle and just see where it takes us.
Okay, let's go for it.
Okay, so tell me about yourself.
Oh, where to begin? There's nothing special about me, Joe. I'm a normal, everyday sort of guy. Born on a council estate, brought up on a council estate. There's nothing special about me at all. So yeah, that one of the reasons why I've been you've asked me to come on the show is obviously down to the targeting side of what I talk about in my YouTube through my YouTube channel, and the activism that I actually take place in. Obviously, the co-founder of another platform called TI Television that I'm sure we'll talk about at some stage through the interview.
Yeah.
It's about raising the awareness, basically. That's the whole idea. To start with, it's about getting the story out, my story out, but it's just led on from there, and it's moved on so many levels to where I give weekly update videos to all of my subscribers and all my viewers, trying to give them useful information, try and empower them to some degree, because basically what this program does is it dehumanizes you, or it potentially tries to dehumanize you. If you get consumed by the program, then you're pretty much up the creek without the paddle. So the importance of, or the massive importance of the information I put out and the way that I put it out, the structure that I use, is very down to earth, very, very real. People can relate to the way that I communicate, through my YouTube channel. And yeah, I suppose the reason why all this came about, it came about from an incident that happened back in 1995 in my hometown of Ashford in Kent, which is where I was born, where I was in a nightclub, and I was attacked by a drunken son of a Freemason. Only found out the Freemason connection a little while after. They fabricated a story, him or his family fabricated a story that saw me go to trial to Crown Court in Maidstone, Kent. Luckily for me, the evidence that the clubs provided for the court, and my testimony, saw me acquitted of all charges and was released a free man. And that's where it all began. That's where this horror, this to some people, this nightmare began for me. The week after the trial, literally a couple of days after the trial, I decided to go just to get away for a little while. Obviously having about a 9-month build up to this to the trial date. You can imagine the apprehension and sort of like what's going to happen. I was a young lad back then. We're talking 23 years ago. So that's half of my life ago. I'm 46 in a couple of months. So yeah, literally half of my life ago. So I went away out on a holiday, went over to Ibiza actually with some friends and a cousin. Came back to find my property, my flat had been burgled and ransacked, and my car had been covered in paint stripper. But it was also at that stage where I realised that I didn't actually realise at that stage, I just thought the police were being arseholes, basically. Sorry about my language, but...
No, don't say that.
They are, back in my hometown of Ashford, the police seem to run around like some, well, they're not protecting and serving, put it that way. They're not honouring the oath that they take when they become an officer of the law. Effectively, they was utilising their positions in power to destroy and take me down to the best way that they could possibly do. I got back from holiday. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. found a note on my sellotape to my door saying that my flat had been burgled and the flat had been secured by, I'm assuming, the council, because it was an ex-council flat, and that I needed to attend Ashford Police Station to go and pick up the new keys. So I went up to the police station and was told that I needed, this is on a Saturday, 4 o'clock in the morning, Saturday or Sunday morning. I got back on the Saturday, I flew back on the Saturday. And I was told by the officer on the counter that I would need to return to the police station on the Wednesday to pick my keys up, because the officer in charge of the case wasn't actually going to be back on duty then, and he was the one that had taken possession of my keys. So we're looking. I've just come back from a foreign country. This is 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm being told that I can't have access to my own property by the police, the actual police force in Ashford, and I was to return in 3 days' time to pick the keys up. Well, I actually informed them at that stage, and just made them aware that if they had any reports of anybody entering or kicking down or busting down a door in Alder House, which was the property that I lived in, the block of flats I lived in, then not to bother turning up at the address, because it would be the owner gaining access to his property, purely down to the reason because they would not allow me to take the keys. And that's where it all started, you know, and from that point on it was a constant barrage of thefts and vandalisms, vehicles being vandalized and stolen, and it was just endless, you know. It was almost unbelievable, you know. I've got all of the paperwork, all of the criminal paperwork from all of the thefts and all this sort of stuff. I was even arrested for stealing my own vehicle at one stage, and it just carried on. It just went on, and until about 2012, 2013 was when it really did take a real nasty turn, which was then that now I'm aware that it was at that point that I was put into some kind of targeting program, some kind of vicious, horrific targeting, which was mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking home invasions, we're talking poisonings, we're talking pets being attacked and property being destroyed, and, you know, police laughing in my face, and it was like something out of a movie. It was absolutely horrendous. It wasn't long after that point that I actually then started doing some research. Being a very, very grounded and logical, realistic type person, I could see all this happening. And it was like, this is I can't be the only person that's going through this kind of crazy stuff. And so it was at that point that I started doing some research, and I came across an absolute barrage of information online about people that was going through exactly the same thing. And it turns out, which is probably going to be their downfall, is the targeting program is very, very limited. I mean, very limited. You know, they've got a simple step-by-step process that they utilise for every targeted survivor in the world. And when I say world, the UK's got a massive targeting problem and has done for a long, long time. But this is a global issue that seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and the bubble seems to be getting bigger and bigger day by day. The main outcome of the program from the dark side would be to drive the survivor insane, to drive them to commit some kind of criminal act in retaliation for street theatre, which is an organised, synchronised type skit that happens every time you go out. You know, that you get mobbing. You know, I used to go into the shops, and it was at that stage that I realised it was called mobbing. But you'd go to the shops and you'd go and grab a pint of milk, and there'd be like 5 people over your shoulder all going for that same pint of milk. It sounds crazy, but it's basically a psychological warfare program. It's a no-touch torture program, and it's designed to leave no traces. It's all designed for them to have plausible deniability on whatever outcome. So yeah, the mobbing went on, the hacking started, the mobile phones were, I think over a 2-year period I went through about 12 mobile phones. or Blackberries, because I run a business, or I was running a business. And luckily for me, that I had insurance on the phones because it was a business contract. So as soon as they messed up one phone, I literally phoned up and I got a new one sent out. But it was just silly, you know, it was endless. Day after day, it was like, this one's gone, so I need to get another one. This one's gone. And sometimes they would deliver phones that were hacked or broken and wouldn't even turn on. It was just an absolute barrage of, you know, credit card infiltration, you know, payments taken from credit cards. I've got a stack of credit cards that I've saved them, where I've noticed rogue payments being made on the cards from various parts of the world, from various people, cards then cancelled. The following month there'll be another transaction that I didn't make from somebody in Japan for a couple of $100 whatever dollars or whatever. And that's also and then that all subsided. It's almost like they will trial a certain amount of stuff, and then once you actually learn how to overcome it, or they realise it doesn't bother you, which is everything is supposed to bother you, absolutely everything. The same as what the discussion we was having before we went live about the helicopters. You know, I think the certain people in the community call it air stalking. You know, you get vehicle stalking. You know, the problems in the vehicles was absolutely crazy. You know, luckily I've got some footage of a police patrol car trying to run me into the central reservation of a motorway when I was on my way home from a business meeting. But you'd go out in the car and you'd have people sort of slamming their brakes on, expecting you to smash into the back of them on a roundabout and silly stuff like that. It was just, but it was constant. You know, the way that it's designed that. To look like bad luck or to look like coincidence, that would generally happen to somebody normal, probably maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months. When you're being targeted, then strokes of bad luck and those coincidences happen dozens and dozens of times every day. I mean, every day. Not now. Back in the early days, it was just you're constantly on guard. You know, it turns you into some kind of, well, you have to become some kind of like counter agent to everything they do. You know, but there was poisoning my food. There was, you know, that saw me in hospital, and you know, the involvement of, in my opinion, the involvement of virtually every public funded organisation in this country, I experienced problems at doctors, problems at dentists, problems when I went down to the tip to go and take rubbish down to the tip. You know, just continual rudeness. Continual, almost like that people are laughing at you. You know, when you have a stroke of bad luck or something happens, and there's always seems to be a bunch of people around you, all sort of like sniggering, and it was pathetic. And for me, because of the person I am, all of that sort of stuff just really had no effect on me at all.
Yeah. Can I just come in? Because what I'm conscious of is I have spoken to lots of people, as I said to you when we spoke the other day, who have had the same experiences as you. And it's as extreme as what you're talking about. But to a lay person, so a normal person who watches EastEnders and goes to work and has the tea and yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just normal people, and the members of my family who I'd put in that category, because it seems so way out to their current reality and their experience in this reality. The first go-to explanation that a lay person's mind would be that people who are targeted are paranoid, are looking for things, are imagining it and making it worse than it is. So I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to validate what you're saying based on the other people who I've spoke to who are telling me it's as extreme as what you're saying.
You will get the same story from virtually 99% of the targeted survivors that you talk to, because the program is so limited. Because it is so limited, that, like I said earlier on, I mean, hopefully that is going to be their downfall, because you can't have 200,000 or 300,000 people all over the globe, all stating exactly the same things, virtually in the same order. And it's just like, what on earth? I mean, the way is so blatantly obvious that it's the establishment either know about it, they're either controlling it, or they're turning a blind eye to it, because there's too many of us out here now. There's not enough of us speaking up like I am, or we are at TI Television. And I hope within time that will change. I hope within time the program gets stopped from within. That's the ultimate. That'll be the ultimate result that we're looking for. But until that time, we've just got to keep marching forward. Onward and upwards. It's the only way. Their biggest fear, their biggest problem is exposure. And that is, so if that's their biggest fear, that's their biggest that's their biggest problem, then that's what we've got to do. We've got to continue exposing any which way that we can.
Yeah, so you're a strong person. So you've got the ability to identify it, take proof, distance yourself from it, realise it's not you. But I have actually spoken to people who've had it all their lives. They've not just had it from an experience, like yours was an experience that happened when you was with, let's say, connected people. So you was targeted because of that. But some people
my targeting is obviously some kind of sick revenge type scenario. I actually spoke to a really high level Freemason who was a friend of my late father's, and I explained what was going on to him, and he said and I told him the people that I thought was involved. I'm not going to mention names on here. And he said, Shane, there's nothing I can do for you. He said, but all I can tell you is you've been tagged. This is from a master Freemason, a friendly Freemason. So they call it tagging in their little lodgy world, their little sick and twisted world that they all live in. And to them, it seems to be some kind of game. It's a game of life and death. They don't care whether you live or whether you die, as long as they keep persecuting you, as long as they keep probing you, as long as they keep making your life as difficult as they possibly can, which is what it's a game to them. It's absolutely sick and twisted.
I want to add something in here to put some context to it a little bit further. So there are some people who join the Masons and it's a boys club, a handshake, I'll give you a job, you give me a job. And there are some people who generally go in it from a business perspective and they stay at that level. Yeah. And it's when you go up in the rankings and in the levels and you start to do the rituals and the things that get you.
What you mean when they realise they're actually sort of worshipping Lucifer?
Yeah. Basically, after a certain point.
It's with Freemasonry, as there is with a lot of these secret organisations, there's always an inner and an outer circle, so to speak. You've got the outer circle that's the big fluffy, we help humanity and we help the communities and we do this and we're charitable this, but that is just a mask for the disgusting filth that lies within. And that is so evident when it comes down. There's always, probably in 90% of the people that I've taken testimonies from or spoken to or counselled, there has generally been some Freemasonry link there somewhere along the line. So you tell me, where's it coming from?
And I think, people have labelled it conspiracy theorists along the way, but it's not theories, it's actually facts. Fact,
most certainly. Yeah. There's no theories around the targeting program unless you are an uneducated person, unless you're one of the kind of person that are not willing to actually look into and research what so many people are saying. And if you're the sort of person that believes everything that you watch on your TV screen and read in your local or your national media rag that's, fake media, fake news. It's
owned by the same people who conspire in those inner sanctums.
They literally got every base covered. They've got the money, they've got the media, they've got the public people, the public purse, the public funding organisations. So it's a war. There's a war going on. There is most certainly a war going on. There's a very, very dark and sinister element of society that we need to bring into the light. And the only way that we're going to do that is by keep exposing them and keep shouting out. And just quickly referring back to the Brian Harvey thing, the reason that I jumped on the Brian Harvey thing and started showing my support for Brian is because Brian talks about, unbeknown to him, I don't know whether he's sort of I don't think he'll put himself in a category as being part of the targeted community. He is, because he has mentioned that he's targeted. But some of the stuff that he talks about in some of his videos, especially a short video that he put up recently on YouTube, I don't think he does much on YouTube now, where he was literally barricaded in one room of his home, and he is talking about colour sensitization. which is the massive part of the program. They try and sensitize the survivor to anything and everything, be it car horns or loud revving engines or colours, which is what Brian was referring to. Apparently they would utilise the colour purple to sensitise Brian to the colour purple. And basically what that does is it actually makes the victim or the person that's being persecuted on the lookout for everything of the colour that they've been sensitised to, whether it be red, whether it be purple, whether it be white or black or whatever. It's to get your attention. I mean, they need to retain your attention 24/7 for the program to actually have some kind of effect. He's talking about, we all know about the death threats that he's had. He talks about home invasions, which every true, genuine targeted individual will at some stage have encountered some kind of home invasion. And when I say home invasion, I mean they come in, they must use some kind of bump key to get into your locks. With me back in Ashford, they was actually coming across from, it was a semi-detached property that I lived in, and they was coming across through the attic from the semi-detached house from next door. I've actually got an audio recording of them coming down, letting down the aluminium loft ladder, opening the hatch, and several of them coming down into my house while I was asleep in bed. Now, wow. To any normal person, that would be enough to tip you over the edge.
Yeah. Sorry, my battery's just not plugged in, so I don't want it to run out, so bear with me. I just need to get my plugs. So, but that's come up, battery running lower.
Very unprofessional of you, Jo. I'm surprised.
I know. That's not interference, that's my dippiness. so right, we're sorted now, we're going to stay on air. So, and some of the things that I want to just sort of, again, because I'm thinking about some people who listen to this show, some will be very aware of the stuff that I look at, including things like this. But some, it might be new to them. So I just want to, if you're okay, go over the Brian Harvey scenario and talk about the synchronicities with what you've experienced, what Seven's experienced, and what lots of targeted survivors are experiencing right now. Yeah. So I'll give my account of it, and then if you can add to it. Yeah. So I was made very recently aware that Brian was targeted. I didn't even know about it. I know that because I've not looked at the mainstream media for years because I've never trusted it for a long time. But the mainstream media started to call him out as if he was some kind of nut jobs. He had some drug addiction, some challenges. And so the headlines in the UK just blasted him as some paranoid, nutty person. Yeah. And I didn't pay any attention to it. I just knew him as an ex-singer, from a band from years ago. And then what started to happen was, it turns out that he was involved in the incidents about phone tapping. When Millie Dowler, a young girl, went missing in the UK, the newspapers were called out for phone tapping her phone, but also yes, it was. And lots of celebrities were also having their phone tapped. Yeah. Their phones tapped at the time. Brian Harvey was one of those celebrities who was being phone tapped.
Indeed,
now, because he was high profile, sold 22 million records, was still very famous at the time, and because he's a switched on character, he was calling it out for what it was. And also because he had a fallout with a guy who would pull the band together, there was like some way of trying to discredit him and dismiss him then.
To assassination, all part of the program, yeah.
Absolutely. And then what happened was, as he started to go down the rabbit holes that this stuff leads you down, looking at the media, the people controlling it, how the truth's hidden from people, he started, when you go down the rabbit holes, one of the things that is very prominent, as I'm sure you found, Shane, that there's a massive link with these people at the top and these groups that link to paedophile rings and people in very high powers across our society. So Brian started to uncover that and call it out for what it was. And then what happened was, it sounds like he's had some gatekeepers put towards him to shut him up, to steer him off track, to further discredit his character.
Yeah.
The great thing about Brian, as with Seven, is he's recorded everything.
Yeah.
He has documented everything. Yeah. And when you listen to how he accounts for what he's actually experienced, he's of a very sound mind. Yeah. And it's understandable when he said...
Very switched on. Very, very switched on.
Yeah. So then what happens is he starts to talk about the tactics that have been used on him across the years. So this is where I want to bring you in, where you saw the similarities with the tactics. So you talked about the barricading in, the desensitization of specific colours. So first of all, this your basic stuff where they just follow you down the street, like you say, mobbing, gangstalking is another term that they use, or people following you and filming you. But the other thing is the technology that you're using, like the voice of God stuff, the infiltrating other institutions. So do you want to tell me where the synchronicities, what you identified, what you heard Brian talking about?
Well, I don't think Brian would at this stage sort of like dare start talking about any form of electronical targeting, purely because he needs to remain believable. And when I say believable, the targeting program is hard enough for anybody to take on board anyway. Now, it's really, really hard for me to initially to even understand how another human being could be as vicious, and I mean vicious, as what I've encountered. So I don't think Brian's going to talk about that side of things. Whether he has been, I hope he hasn't. I really hope he hasn't. But I've got some sterling proof on my YouTube channel when it comes down to the electronical harassment that I could prove. One of the rooms that I was actually forced out of my home after my dog was attacked, and I was poisoned, nearly killed, nearly died in hospital, etc., etc. So for my own safety and for my dog's safety, I decided to move in with my elderly mother. And the room that I was staying in, literally from day one, there was some really, when I walked in the room, something was being targeted or fired through the window from one of the many local houses that were overlooking that bedroom window. And it was something that literally knocked me off my feet. Now, I'm quite a hefty fella, I'm a 200-pound man. I've been bodybuilding, I'm a martial artist, etc., etc. Now, it takes a lot to knock me off my feet. Whatever they was firing through that window, I had no idea what the hell was going on. So I started looking at the research, I started looking at shielding and all that sort of stuff. But I then also thought, you know what, I wonder if I can measure this stuff. I wonder if I can pick these signals up or whatever it is. So again, through research, I then came across people were saying, oh, it's microwave radiation. They're utilising some form of microwave weaponry against targets. So I'm like, okay, well, if they're using microwave radiation, then I need to find a device that measures microwave radiation. And on the short video that you'll see on my YouTube channel, I only put it up a couple of months ago because I found it on an old USB stick in the bottom of my security box. You quite clearly see me walking around. I actually purchased a microwave engineer's radiation detector that microwave people that work on microwave ovens utilise to see whether microwave ovens are leaking radiation. Mm-hmm. And indeed, what was being fired through my window, I walk around the whole house, as you'll see on the video, and the meter's reading 000, 0.1 little snitch here from a little, I don't know, maybe wiring from around the house. As soon as you walk into my bedroom, the whole device literally starts bottoming out. The red alarm starts bleating, and it's like, and that's when I discovered what they was firing through was some kind of microwave signal or beam or something. But I literally couldn't stay in that room. I most of the time I ended up like sleeping downstairs on the sofa because I could not stay in that room. Whatever it was not only would it physically knock me off my feet, but it would like cause such confusion and such nausea. You just couldn't, there's no way that you could live in that environment. It was completely unhuman environment to actually sort of like, you couldn't survive in it. There's no way you could survive in it. I then looked at some kind of shielding, and I put several layers of mylar sheeting up over the window, behind the curtains, and that reduced the signal quite a lot, but still not enough for me to be able to stay in that room or sleep in that room. So there is most definitely another element, another very, very dark, unseen element of this program that involves electronical harassment, non-lethal weaponry, whether it be microwave radiation, whether it be laser, or whatever it is. I don't care what it is. I don't know what it is. All I know is what that device picked up, luckily, was some form of microwave radiation. So why would a microwave radiation measurement device pick up high levels of microwave radiation in one room in a 4-bedroom house? Mm-hmm. It's because I was being targeted with microwave weaponry.
Yeah, and I've heard again that before, and I've there's things I've heard before from some people, and I won't share names because it's not my place to share their names because I've had private conversations with them. And it's not people I've interviewed here what I'm referring to, but there's some people claiming, and I do believe them, to have implants put in them at some point in time, and the technology that's used is aimed at the implants that they've got within them.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely happens. The way that I know it definitely happens is because probably about, and this is what I'm saying here, they plan this out for a long time. About 10 years ago, I think it was about 10 years ago, when they must have been coming into the house when I was sleeping and doing whatever, one morning I woke up with severe pain up the left-hand side of my nose, with literally buckets and buckets of blood gushing out of my left-hand nostril. And back then, you know, this is prior to all of this like nefarious stuff going on. I was just like out bizarre, you know, I had to chuck the pillowcase away because it was literally blood soaked. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, what the heck is that? You know, I thought, well, maybe I'll pick my nose in the night time or something. Mm-hmm. But over time, I've actually, I feel a throbbing up in my sinus area, like a pulsating, and the nostril, the cartilage, or whatever it is up the, I mean, that left hand side of my nose is virtually closed now. I can't breathe through that. Can you see it? Did you hear that? Mm-hmm. You know, that was completely blocked. That side's completely blocked. As well at that point as well, I was experiencing some more than headaches, you know, more than migraines. I mean, it was almost like someone had sort of like popped the top of my skull off and they was stirring my brain. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. It was, and this went on for days and days and days. It was just very, very traumatizing. Mm-hmm. Very, very traumatizing. And so it goes on. You know, whatever they're doing, whatever they're utilising, whatever they're experimenting on people like myself and so many other hundreds of thousands of people across the world, these people need to be stopped. You know, this needs to be exposed. You know, I must have known over the years probably a dozen or so people that are now no longer with us because they have decided that they couldn't take the targeting anymore and they've killed themselves.
And I do know people, that's why I'm cautious not to mention names, who've been very close to that too.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've mentioned this to you the other day, I'm a therapist. And when I speak to these people, they don't trust me. Yeah. And I don't blame them because they've had their sense of who they can trust completely knocked out of them day in, day out, day in, day out.
One of the main aspects of the program is the isolation. And when I'm talking about isolation, there will be, prior to you being made aware that this sort of weird stuff's going on, there will be some kind of like slandering character assassination campaign. Brian Harvey, you know, they utilise the papers to do that for him. Yeah. It's like they must be going around with some kind of, I don't know, a shiny badge, and they're talking to people that you know and come across, friends, and it's whether they threaten them or whether they lie to them, what they say to them, I've got no idea. I don't really care. But that is the initial process to start the isolation. Because then when you start experiencing all of this stuff and it's so far out and so wacky, they want no one to believe you. They don't want to have any support. They don't want you to have people around you that can assist or even just be there for you. So they want you on your own. And when you're on your own, you are a sitting duck. Mm-hmm. They will absolutely run amok with you if you're living on your own as a targeted person. No, you know, I know, I lived through it and survived and come out the other end. So the main key for them for success is to keep the target isolated away from society. I mean, they literally remove you from society. And that's when it all then literally bombards you, you know, everything. For me personally, it was just like a constant bombardment, from character assassinations out in public. People, you know, people that, you know, I lived in that house for 12 years, and there was a lot of elderly people that lived in the local neighbourhood that used to come to me for Shane, can you fix my guttering? Shane, I've got a leak in my roof. Shane, I've got this. Shane, I've got that. Then all of a sudden, one day, it was really, really bizarre. The people that would normally be coming in and asking me to assist them or help them or do something for them would see me. Literally, they would have some kind of look of horror on their face. They would turn towel and walk back in the house. And it was just like, and I couldn't understand it. It was just like, what the hell was going on here? Mm-hmm. And that was like literally the whole community, everywhere I went. The local shops where I went to get my bread and my milk, the garage I went to go and get my fuel for my cars. It was the same response. And it was just like, what on earth is going on here? To me, it was quite funny. I found it amusing, as I found all of the gangstalking amusing, as I found a lot of this stuff amusing. And you're not supposed to find it amusing. And I think it was just all down to the kind of character that I am, the kind of person that doesn't take bullshit from anybody, mm-hmm. no matter what you've been told. No matter, I don't care. You know, if you're gonna do something wrong to me, you need to be able to explain yourself, or you need to get out of my way. Simple as that. So I used to have great fun with gangstalking and the car stuff.
So talk us through a gangstalking experience, just for people so that people who are watching this who are experiencing it, they know they're not on their own and they're not imagining it. What's
okay. They tried to initially, it's going back to the colour sensitization. They initially tried to get me sensitized to the colour red. Well, basically all they'd done for me was they alerted me to the fact that if there was any kind of red scenario going on with whether it be a single mother walking a buggy or an elderly lady with a red coat on, or to me that just alerted me to the fact that was somebody that was involved in this crap that was going on around me. But you would just do a little example. You know, I'd go over the field and walk the dog. You know, you then have several people all wearing that same colour. Past you with a look that, and these people, I mean, they almost looked like they were soulless. They had this like blank expression on their face. So what I started doing is I started interacting with them, but interacting with them as a normal person, as a normal human being. And it was quite, and on many occasions it was really, really bizarre, because it was almost, as soon as I started interacting with them, they sort of like came around. It's like they blinkered out of some kind of, I don't know, like they was under some kind of bloody spell or something. It was really, really bizarre. So I'd go walking the dog, and then all of these people wearing red would pass me, and you would assume that if you're walking the dog in the morning or the afternoon, that person would pass you once, maybe twice, if they forgot something at home and they'd had to turn tail. I'm talking that you'd probably see them saying 5 or 6 people probably 50 times during that one dog walking session.
Wow.
That is.
See, I've always wondered about this, because I've heard this, gangstalking stories before, and the people that do it, I wonder if they're just paying random people to do it, but they don't realise what they're actually contributing to, or if they are part of a program who are being mind controlled to do that. Quite possibly. You know, if you look into the technology that's been invented through the patents and stuff like that. You know, in one of my next upcoming videos, I'm going to be doing a complete update on the Google US Mind patents that I've become aware of. And some of that stuff, I mean, if that don't wake an individual up, if that doesn't actually confirm what these disgusting so-called elitists, or and there's nothing elite about these people, they're utilising technology on the masses big time, absolute big time. You know, look, it's just, and it's all there in black and white. It's all there. It's all out there. But people just seem to be so oblivious, and they put things down to him, and they're always, somebody that's non-targeted and they experience, I don't know, say for instance, insomnia, where they have trouble sleeping and they've got to go to the doctor to get pills. And there's a Google patent out there that's been out there since 1991, where there is a frequency that they can put through a device, whether it be a laptop, whether it be a TV, whether it be your smartphone, that can wake you at will and make you sleep at will by suiting a certain frequency. The human body is like a computer. Right? I like to call us wetware, because that's what we are. Your brain fires. Your brain is like a quantum computer, if you like. Absolutely, it is. And
it fires and it utilises electricity to function. All of these different functions of the body, when you see, when you hear, when you smell, have got their own frequency that emitted through the brain for you to be able to see that lamp or to see you on this laptop and to hear you, etc., etc. Some clever monkey has found a way of recording those frequencies and actually emitting artificial versions of those frequencies that are causing lots and I mean disastrous effects on not only targeted survivors but humanity as a whole.
Yeah,
it's shocking, absolutely shocking, and because it's you can't see this stuff. You know, you can feel it. I know you can feel it, but you can't see this stuff. So if you can't see it, how can you try and explain it to someone?
we're just swimming in electromagnetic soup right now, and
absolutely
it is, and like they're trying to implement 5G. I have had somebody on my show talking about 5G in the past. So you know that the microwave frequencies that come out from that are absolutely damaging to all biological organisms, and you know, and that's one of the mediums they probably plan to use to bring. You know, like I often wonder, is the TI strategy or the targeted survivor strategy a testing bed for what they can do to the population on a bigger scale going forward? So I think some of it are guinea pigs.
I've got most certainly. There's definitely whether the experimentation is this is gone far beyond the experimental stage. This is a full-blown program. This is a full-blown take humanity down to a level that they want it to be at. A control. It's all about control. So this whole thing is about control. If they want to be able to, look what's going on. You know, you've got the Agenda 21, which is now 2030, and all of this other nefarious stuff, and you know, the Georgia Guidestones, and you know, like the new 10 Commandments. You know, this reduce the population of the planet down to below 500 million. It's all there. I mean, somebody up there is looking to destroy humanity as we know it, and they're well on the way. They are well on the way. Look at things like the light bulbs. I've done a video recently on the new lamps that are coming out, the new LED lamps that are all literally have got their own internet modems on top of them, that are not only there to light the streets, but they're there to utilize the 5G system for very, very nefarious means. You know, years ago we had the old-fashioned light bulbs. All of a sudden, they became discontinued, and everybody's got to use these nasty radiation-emitting blue illumination type LEDs and cost-saving light bulbs. Now that wasn't just to reduce energy consumption. That was to put a signal out into the human populace to affect the way the human brain works. The melatonin that you need when you're sleeping, you know, everything from laptops, from smartphones, from lamps, from light, anything that has got. You can't buy an old-fashioned light bulb now. Now, why is that?
I've got my whole house with them, so I've got them.
What, the old-fashioned ones?
Yeah.
You're very lucky. You'd be very, very hard pushed to find some of those.
You know, some of the cheapest stores like B&M Bargains in the UK, they'll still do them, so I get them from there. Okay. Yeah. Took them all out, all the you know, those toxic ones. Like once I realised what they were doing, I've taken them out of the house. But it's like you're absolutely right about the brain, right? So we're electrical beings. So the brain is electrical and the heart is magnetic, and we are. I often describe us as biological computers, and we do respond to frequencies. And we've been steered away from that knowledge, but they've had access to that knowledge and they've been utilising it over humanity for eons. But now technology has become so advanced that they can literally influence thinking, wellness, ill health, all kinds of stuff linked to the vibrational frequency.
They can anything that the human body does naturally, they can do, and some.
Yeah.
You know, the technology that they're utilising, and my theory on the whole term TI, I think it's related to the Tavistock Institute.
Yeah.
You know, because all of these terms all literally came from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the term conspiracy theorist, where did that come from?
CIA.
The term targeted individual, where did that come from?
Yeah. And again, it's TI, Tavistock Institute. Again, because they give everything in plain sight, don't they? And, you know, it's like, you know, as a collective of people being called TIs, on some level, there's some level of acceptance of victimization, isn't there? Like, I love the fact you said that you're a survivor, because you're changing the label. You're not allowing that label.
I'm not. I don't allow myself to be categorised by anybody.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of person I am, you know. And they're not going to corral me into. I mean, I'm not a targeted individual. I might be in a targeting program, But I'm a survivor of a vicious targeting takedown program that has failed miserably with me. And they must be frothing at the mouth, literally frothing at the mouth, because I've got so much evidence against them, you know, against the police, against the establishment, against doctors, etc., etc., etc. They can't come knocking at my door. So I'm taking advantage of that fact, and I will shout and I will scream as loud and as long as I need to get this information out, to get the program acknowledged and exposed to the masses. We're not going to get any help from the establishment, because that's where it's coming from.
Yeah,
If they're not directly involved, I think what it is when it comes down to the links to the establishment. If you're aware, you probably are aware of the whole MK Ultra baloney that went on and finished apparently in 1973.
Still going on. It got extended and expanded.
Well, it just went underground. The research didn't stop. But you did have the president at that time, I think was it Clinton, actually stand up and apologise to the victims of the MK Ultra, the surviving victims of the MK Ultra mind control program. And they all got compensated meagerly. You know, I think they got about $200,000 each and a sorry from the president. So what they've done and what they've learned from that is they're utilising private security companies. They're utilising private investigation type companies that are all run by ex-military, ex-Freemasons, ex-police commissioners, chiefs, whatever, monkeys, whatever you want to call them. And that then breaks the link and it allows the government to go, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't know what you're talking about, because they have learned from the mistakes that they had or they made through the MK Ultra program.
Because of the Freedom of Information Act, legally they're obliged to tell you what they're doing, but if they outsource it, then they don't have to. They're doing it through a third party.
The whole thing's run on plausible deniability, Joe. You know what I mean? They do. They have any option that they have that there may be to put the finger on the establishment has been removed. And it's down to them learning from their mistakes from previous. I mean, this mind control stuff, these government experimentations, have been going on for decades. In one of my previous videos, I found, luckily somebody said, because I've got quite a following now, I've got quite a lot of viewers, I've got a nice amount of subscribers that follow me on a regular basis, and I'm lucky enough they're really, really, I mean, they love the interaction. You know, they send me information they want me to speak about. And a few weeks ago, somebody sent me a Guardian article from 2002, where from a Freedom of Information request, it was discovered that the DOD, the MOD in this country, has been experimenting on the British public since the 1930s and 1940s by spraying all sorts of stuff over the skies, you know, chemicals here, chemicals there, and it hasn't stopped.
Well, I've got somebody coming on in a few weeks, and it's going to be really interesting and literally about the geoengineering. And it's taken up a notch from where it's been before. I'm not going to disclose too much right now, but I've got some fantastic people coming on in a few weeks' time about this.
While you're on the topic of the you know, whatever you want to call them, chemtrails, geoengineering, seeding, whatever you want to call it, and they're actually now normalising that.
We're calling it geoengineering because there's patents linked to it, and we're going to keep to that language on the show that we do.
What you're actually doing, I mean, I was in the mornings, I'm sitting there, because I live with my ugly mother, and in the mornings I sit there eating my porridge and having my cup of coffee, and she's always got mainstream TV on and the weather comes on. And last week I saw the weather come on and the bloke was standing there behind a sky full of chemtrails. They're in true. I've got young nephews that come and stay on a regular basis, and they're watching their cartoon programs and getting programmed through the television and all this crap. And they're actually, I mean, some of these programs, the skies are full of chemtrails.
Well, you know, one thing I noticed about 4 years ago when everybody was switching on the Windows application, it was like a dove with a leaf in its mouth and then lines on a blue background, and it just looked like geoengineering. It just looked exactly the same, but it's subliminally, people are just seeing it all the time, and it's just
and then accepting it.
Yeah, because they're seeing it every time they switch the computer on, and everybody's on the computers.
And so that's another really important point to make. Actually, the subliminal part of the targeting, and not only the targeting of people in the targeting program, but of humanity. You know,
the whole of
humanity is being targeted.
Yeah. Well,
whether they like to believe it or not. They
Absolutely.
are targeted in all sorts of ways. You know, look at all of the vaccinations, the all of these alphabet syndromes that have all of a sudden over the past 15 or 20 years literally been a plague on humanity. You know, poor children that are going through and getting medicated and labelled with all of these ADHD and Asperger's and all of this other stuff. Where's it all coming from? Where's the dementia coming from? Where's the increase in suicides coming from? I done a video on suicides. I found some really, really interesting facts and stats on the levels of suicide in this country over the past 10 years. It's horrendous.
Is it really?
Absolutely horrendous. I mean, it's up like 40-odd% over the past few years.
I'll tell you something I know that that's been brought to my attention. Apparently all the mortuaries are full, and people who are waiting for burials across the country, there was a really big waiting list because of the amount of people dying.
That was actually in exactly the same video that I talked about the suicide stats. There was also the stats of there was an article that I come across where their doctors are saying, oh, they're so confused and they don't really know why there's been a massive increase in the level of deaths in the UK. And I'm talking sort of like, I think it was about 260,000 extra for the first 6 months of this year compared to last year. That's 250,000 people.
That's a lot.
So why is that happening? You know, why?
And it's not just the austerity. There's bigger than that. There's something much bigger, isn't there? There's something going on here.
Something dark and something very, very nefarious. Not only around the targeted community, but across humanity.
Yeah,
is taking place. It's
worldwide as well. It's not just the UK. It's worldwide.
Yeah, it's humanity as a whole, Joe. I mean, it's not. It's quite severe here in the UK because we're a little island. You know, they've got everything buttoned down. And
it's the centre of the monetary system, isn't it? It's where it's all funded from.
Well, our society over here, as probably most societies across the world, are they live in fear, created by the establishment that run the country. Yeah. You know, let me give you a little example. We had our voting papers come through yesterday, I believe, and it's on the bottom part of it in big bold letters is that if you don't send this back by a certain amount of time, you're going to be fined £1,000. Now, can you see where I'm getting at?
I just opened a letter from a bank literally just before I came on the show, and it said, if you don't send these information back, we'll suspend your account, your business account. I literally had a similar thing.
So the whole country and everybody in this country is programmed to fear the establishment, programmed to fear the police, programmed to fear, or not fear, but listen to and believe the police, the doctors, the teachers at the school, anybody and everybody in a place of authority. You are programmed from birth to believe that person and believe that they are there to do what you've been told they're there to do. It's absolute poppy, absolute disgusting.
I've never really liked authority. It's never sat with me. I've never wanted to follow it. I want to resist it.
Yeah, I've never got on too well at school in my younger days. I actually went back to school, got my qualifications as a mature student at college.
Me too.
Because I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't. There was nothing there that was grabbing my interest. Absolutely nothing. If anything, it was just, and the discipline that you were showing back when I was at school a few years ago now. It was just like, well, if you don't do that, you're going to be disciplined. And if you don't do this, it will happen to you. So and there again, even in the education system, it's all based around fear.
It is.
Now, what is fear, Joe? Fear is a basic human emotion of an event that's never even happened yet. Absolutely.
As a therapist, I work on people releasing fears, and it's a vibrational frequency, it's an energy, and if there's a really great example I use when I talk about fear, and a lady called Lynn McTaggart wrote a book called The Field, and she basically interviewed quantum physicists, and she puts it into layman's terms. And one bit that really stuck with me, which explains what they've been doing to you, so it's very relevant. There was an experiment where they got some people to sit in a Faraday cage. So for those who don't know, a Faraday cage is like a barrier that stops any interference from external forces coming in.
Not all.
Right. Not all, but it's supposed to stop any frequencies. Yeah. So these people were sat inside the Faraday cage, and they had people with psychic abilities, attempting to shift things in the physical being that could be measured. So those things were like blood pressure, temperature, heart rate. Right. What was really interesting was the people who were in a state of self-love couldn't be interfered with.
Yeah.
The people who were in a state of fear could be easily manipulated.
It's the negative vibrations. It's them low-level vibrations, which is where these people live. I mean, they live in these low-level, I don't know, demonic type, satanic, like.
But they keep our fear low so they can control us from the outside. Like 9/11, prime example.
When a human's in fear, they're going to do whatever they're told to do. I mean,
because they're not thinking straight.
Because they're in a state of fear and a state of panic. It's just when the beauty of, and I say beauty, but the level of and the amount of attempts that have taken place on my life through this targeting, there is nothing else to fear. There's no more fear. And that's why I have got the attitude that I have. And that's why I've got the persona that I've got, is because, what are they going to do? What are they going to do next? They've done it all.
And that's a really good point, because, I think about myself, and I believe that this reality is an illusion, and I'm not frightened of leaving it and going back to my higher self, where I come from. So, that does keep me strong, so I don't go into the fear. But I was bullied at school, and I used to always be in fear, so I've experienced it a lot. Yeah. But that experience as a child helps me transcend it now as an adult.
Well, fear. I mean, death's only the end of life, and death for me would be freedom. Mm-hmm. And so they want to kill me, let them go ahead. I'm gone then.
Well, you've no intention of doing it yourself as well. Let's put that out there.
No, certainly not. There's and that's a good point to make, actually, Jo, because that's another way that that they get their grips into people, is by literally putting that thought in their head. The amount of people, the amount of stuff that you find on YouTube and from survivors, from their Facebook pages and all that sort of stuff. You'll see sort of like police officers that are attending a targeted survivor's house, and they'll be like, and the first thing they'll say, rather than be there what they're there that's been reported, like the break-in or the destruction of property or whatever it may be, they generally first come out with, "Are you okay? You feeling suicidal?" Because they're waiting for that person to say, "Well, yeah, I am," and then once you say, "Yeah, I am," boom, you're gone. That's the end. You've got that label. You're then medicated up to your eyeballs. And you're no good to yourself, and you're no good to anybody else. It's exactly the same as what they've done to me. To shut me up. After trying to run me off the road, after poisoning me, after doing all sorts of stuff. I was just like, I need to let people know in my own town. So I printed off, because my brother has been massively affected by this targeting, and I don't know, and I know I shouldn't, because people tell me that I shouldn't. I don't know whether what they done to my brother, my younger brother Dean, was a result of my targeting.
But it's not your fault, because you didn't do anything anyway.
No, I know, but I still can't. That's the sort of person I am. They nearly killed my brother. Members of Ashford Police Station, they nearly killed him. Prior to all of the targeting running up, which is another thing that's been floating around my head. I used to run around with my mates that I grew up with. 3 of those were killed by the police, and 2 other ones were murdered by unknown people. So that was 5 people that would have or could have or should have been around to support me and be around me during my targeting experience that all of a sudden disappeared.
Here's a question I've got for you that I mentioned to Seven, and I feel like I'm divinely protected, and Seven thinks she is too. Is that how you feel?
There's definitely been some form of guidance, some form of positive energy, if you want to call it that. That I don't think without that, I don't think I would have survived what I've come. There's no way I would have come through what I've come through. It's been too vicious. It's been too, really, really vicious. And call it what you like. Call it divine intervention. Call it your guardian angel. Call it what you like. But there is definitely something that has been protecting me along this path. Something that has protected me along this path to get me to the stage of where I'm sitting here talking to you now on this laptop.
Yeah.
Because without that, I don't think I would have made it through. Mm-hmm. honestly, truly, hand on heart, there's no way I would have made it through this.
Yeah.
So yeah, there definitely is some kind of hidden light, hidden whatever that has aided me to be able to get to the stage I'm in now. Yeah, most certainly, no question about it.
Yeah, and I think about people like David Icke and Seven, and because lots of people have said, why is David Icke still here with what he's been exposing? And I think it's the same thing, divine protection, and a feeling and knowing that you're protected at the same time.
Something has prevented me from being taken away from this plane on many occasions, and many occasions, not just one or two, but I'm talking a good handful of occasions. What that is, I don't know. My job now and my role that I see myself playing is not only to help fellow survivors, not only to give survivors that have been isolated away and dealing with the targeting on their own for so many years a glimmer of hope. Just trying to sort of like stir up the courage inside them, the strength inside them that it's in all of us, but it's been beaten down. It gets beaten down. Reverting back to when I said about the dehumanizing aspect of the program, what they do. You could be the strongest character, you can be, you could be the biggest man, you could, but if you allow the program to consume you, if you don't understand, if you don't look and understand exactly what they are trying to do to you, it will consume you. It will take you, it will dehumanize you, and it will take you, and that you will have no choice about it. So my role now within the people that follow me and that we work with at TI Television is to try and build that humanity back into them, to try and show them that, the courage. Your internet connection is unstable. Well, let me stick my hardwire in.
Okay, I've got mine in already. Yeah.
Right, okay, but it's not going to be unstable now because it's running through an Ethernet cable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about giving people that glimmer of hope back, and giving them people and making them understand that all they've been done is just been reprogrammed. That's all they've been done, and that's all that's happened to them is that the targeting program has programmed them to think in a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, my job is to oppose that. My role is to oppose that and say, it's all inside you. The strength's all inside you. You just need to start reprogramming. As getting back to the wetware, we're programmed from birth. All humans are programmed from birth, and the targeting is exactly the same thing. It's a reprogramming of your human.
I've never thought of this before. But I have sort of looked at, I'm going to have some guests on in a while about talking about, the birthing process and the nature of how unnatural it actually is, the bright light we're born into, the way they slap the baby's bottom, the drugs they use, the stress they put the mother through. And I never thought about this before, but I was actually born at home.
So was I.
At my nana's house.
I was born in the front room of a council house, and I was I'm one of four boys, one of four sons, and I was the only one that was born at home. But I also had loads of weird stuff. I had loads of weird stuff going on health-wise when I was real young.
I was really poorly as a child.
Yeah, I think at 6 weeks old, I actually went back in with gastroenteritis. I think they told my mum.
Exactly, that's what I had. Exactly the same thing.
Really?
Gastroenteritis, and I nearly died. They had to rush me back into hospital because I was crying constantly.
Yeah. And then I had this weird thing on my left leg and my left foot where the blood was rushing out of. I was almost lame as a sort of 8-9 year old, and the doctors couldn't tell my mother what it was at all. I remember going for a couple of operations and having my leg in plaster on several occasions, but apparently it was where the blood wasn't being circulated through into the bone marrow of my lower leg and my foot, which was causing the lameness, and they couldn't explain it. Everything's fine now, but there was all these little weird these little weird things, I had grommets and my adenoids removed and my tonsils removed, and I had grommets put in my ears.
I had adenoids and tonsils removed as well, and my appendix. I've had everything taken out.
Are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite bizarre, isn't it? It's quite a...
I mean, it could just be purely coincidence, but I think the thing that really makes me think about, like the initial trauma when we're born into this realm, the birth, it is literally so traumatic for children. And I've always felt different, as in, like, I've always, I don't know why, I just felt like I never really belonged here.
The black sheep scenario.
Yeah. And I was never, like, thought the royal family were anything to be, crazy about, or the way, authority, people bow down to authority. It just felt false to me, or I was always...
Don't start talking about our lovely Nazi-based royal family, because that should be another programme.
Oh gosh, that's one in itself. My mum always thinks she's worried I'm going to get arrested with all the things I talk about. But
it's all freedom of speech, isn't it?
Exactly, it is freedom of speech, and if nothing else, I'll call out anybody who's a billionaire sitting on a golden throne, walking past their subjects while the subjects are living in poverty and starving.
Living in poverty, and I found an article that I posted up on Facebook yesterday. There's another huge amount of London working families now that have been having forced to revert to utilising food banks to feed their young children. These are not like people that are on benefits. These are not lazy people. These are people that are working. And they can afford to feed their families.
Citizens Advice Bureau now hand out food parcels that were given to them by food banks. That's become the norm. People go on those days to collect their food from Citizens Advice Bureau. It's becoming a normal system.
How is that normal? How is that normal?
None of it's normal, is it?
When you've got the Queen sort of like, this is what disgusts me. You got the so-called royal family. I was always brought up to believe that if you was a king or a queen, then you looked after your subjects of your country. You looked out for them. If there was any problems, then you was the leader. So we've got a queen that owns all sorts of stuff, trillionaire, all sorts of stuff.
Largest landowner outside of the Vatican. The second landed.
I don't know if you're aware, but just recently, I think at the end of last year, there was a big court case about a company called Bright House.
Right, no, I know the company, but I don't know about the court case.
Bright House is a company that is on the high street, and it's there to rip off low-income families. Yep. By allowing them to have a TV that's probably worth £200 or £300, to pay it over a couple of years, and then where they end up paying sort of £2,000 for a £300 TV. Well, I was quite shocked to actually find out that the Queen owns that company.
I'm not shocked.
The Queen owns Bright House, that was prosecuted last year and forced to pay back millions and millions of pounds of overcharging interest rates to all of the low-income families that have utilised their service. The Queen owns that.
It's just disgusting, isn't it? It is. It's disgusting.
The royal wedding and all that sort of stuff. 2 weeks prior to that, the police was like rambling up and vanning up all of the homeless people in the Windsor area, so they could give the illusion that this was some glorious United Kingdom. What an absolute load of baloney. This country is a disgrace. The people that run it are a disgrace. They're ashamed. They should be ashamed of themselves. It's absolutely disgusting how people are not actually realising the realities of the world that they live in.
See, I've always felt like that. You look at the Vatican and the religious groups. So they talk about following the footsteps of Jesus. This the biblical figure that they follow. And I do think there's some truths embedded within all of the religious books. But the thing is the character that they reckon to be, paying worship to, had no wealth, walked around in sandals, said that it was easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. And then the Pope has the most wealth anywhere.
We just had the Pope in Ireland, and one of the main things that he said, he's asked the public of Ireland to forgive the paedophilic priests that have been abusing thousands and thousands of young children who are going to go on to have what kind of life are they going to lead?
And it's like, there's no punishment, there's no prevention. is covering up.
Because they can't be prosecuted. Any priest within the Catholic realm, they cannot be prosecuted by the normal prosecution process. I mean, it all has to be dealt with by the Pope or by one of his little cronies that that then sort of like gives them a slap on the wrist, moves them to a different parish or whatever, and everything runs on.
Just repeat it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's disgusting.
Did you see there was over 301? There was historical. This is the thing. A lot of historicals being, but it was in America. A grand jury found guilty 301 priests guilty of paedophilia.
Yeah, I did see. Yeah.
And even though it was a really good statement by the guy who had found them guilty, you know, who actually led the investigation and the court proceedings, but it didn't look like any of them were going to get any kind of sentencing or punishment. It was just, it must have been good for the families to get the acknowledgement. And the reason why I think it's a good thing, if nothing else, is it puts it into the psyche of the masses that these men in these robes aren't some godlike figures. They're human beings that have abused their positions of power.
If you ask me, mainstream religion was probably the first form of human mind control that was actually brought into existence. And that's my own. I don't disagree.
That's
my opinion. People are, what do they call it? God-fearing people. Mm-hmm. Now, why would you want to fear somebody that is supposed to be like the be-all and the end-all?
Love. God is love.
I mean, the religion, the mainstream religion, the Catholic, the Church of England, you can go through them all. They're all basically the same load of crap, you know.
Yeah.
Where you've got some fictitious deity or some prophet or someone saying that you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and if you don't do this, you're a bad person. Now, how does that make you a bad person? I mean, the people that are preaching this stuff are the bad people, and that is what the masses need to start understanding and need to realising the realities of what these people actually stand for. I mean, these people are actually the filth and the scourge of society, and yet they are living in like kings and queens. You know, in the most luxurious, and anybody that manages to survive through some of this, the SRA and the child abuse, the sexual abuse in homes and wherever it may take place. As soon as one of those, Melanie Shaw, for example.
Yeah, bless Melanie Shaw.
Now, what happened to Melanie Shaw? She became targeted by the establishment, because anybody that tells the truth, anybody that causes a ripple in their disgusting way of life that to them is normal, then utilise the targeting program to destroy that person.
Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know about Melanie Shaw, absolutely would recommend that you research it. And again, a little very brief overview. She's a lady who used to work, was it Nottingham?
I think it was Nottingham, yeah.
Yeah, and she used to work in the care system, and she called out the high-level paedophiles that were abusing the children in that system, and she had lots of proof about it. And then what happened was the police and the establishment shut down on her, and she's actually in prison right now.
Yeah, she's a 2-year sentence they put her on.
Yeah, and do you know what the sentence was relating to? Wasn't it something to do with arson, suspected arson of burning someone's shed down?
Well, nobody knows the truth, because they won't tell you the truth. All they want is that they want that voice, they want that person away out of society, which is what they do to targeted survivors. It's what the targeting program's designed for. The targeting program was designed initially to take down diplomats and take down the head figures of state and all this sort of stuff. But because the technology has become so, and the program has become so abundant across the globe, it seems now that any faction in anywhere has got the capabilities of calling on this targeting program on anyone that they desire to destroy and take down and get rid of. That's what the targeting program is all about. The targeting program is about destroying and getting rid of a human being.
And it's also about getting rid of anybody who exposes the system for what it is. So anybody who's getting anywhere near and being heard, they'll shut them down. And what I think there's a double reason for things like Melanie Shaw. And another lady I want to mention is Sabine McNeill. So Sabine McNeill, she's a lady who called out the Hampstead children.
Oh, right, okay.
She's in her 70s. She's in prison. So basically, it's like, I think there's a message they're giving out to other whistleblowers to shut up or else you'll end up in prison. And I think it's really, really important as you bring together people that we all start to support and share the information about Melanie Shaw, about Sabine McNeil, because these people who are brave souls standing up to this system should not be put in prison.
Well, look, going back to the Brian Harvey thing. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, everything that Brian Harvey is talking about all reverts back to paedophilia. It reverts back to sexual abuse. You know, I mean, I don't know whether you've heard, but I think he mentioned in one of his videos where he walked in and caught his band manager abusing one of his band members. So the filth that is being hidden in society right now as we are speaking, if it's not taken down, if it's not stopped, then I really can't see where humanity is going to be led. I really can't.
You see, well, I'm an optimist, right? And I'm a person who believes that times are changing. So, like, for example, and I've said this about Seven, something goes out now, more and more people are following it and sharing it and looking at it than ever before. There's a consciousness shift going on right now. Yeah. And, the timing of your videos going out, I don't think you could have started it at a better time. There's a lot of revealing going on right now across the world, not just the UK, across the planet. And the reason is the internet, yeah? And because there are so many people now who have had enough, who know that this is the point of no return. Yeah. You've got to start standing together and start believing each other and get over our differences about whether the Earth's flat, whether the Earth's round, whether...
All that stuff's irrelevant, and it's part of the massive problem that, and one of the main reasons that I decided to start doing what I was doing and what we started doing at TR Television is because they call it the targeted community, but there is no sense of community. Mm-hmm. There are so many varied stages of targeting. You might get a survivor that gets a little bit of gangstalking. You might get a survivor that only gets online targeting. Somebody that gets the odd home invasion or harassment from the police on a regular basis.
Or the odd helicopter follow.
Or the odd helicopter flying above, playing idiots. I just don't. When they used to do that sort of stuff, I used to think, I hope you run out of petrol. I really don't. Because that will serve you right. And I think that the reason that they utilise so many different aspects of the program on such a variation of targets is to cause that division, because you've got thousands of people that are actually connecting through the internet, and you've got a certain percentage of them that are actually getting hit with the whole lot. The home invasions, the poisonings, the sectionings, the problems in the vehicle, the whole shebang. Now, mm-hmm. They are not going to be able to relate to somebody that's only getting, say, a few aspects of the program, and not going to be able to relate to a person that's getting the full shebang. Mm-hmm. But then that causes division. Yep. So how can there be any unity between them two survivors when they've both had a completely different experience? It's all part of the program. Whoever invented this was a very clever man.
Oh, I've said this about the dark ones for a long time.
But he wasn't as clever as what he made out to be.
I think they underestimated humanity. Yeah, they've underestimated the human spirit.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%. And that's why it comes down to people like Brian Harvey and myself and Seven and so many other brave activists, especially the guys and the girls that I work with at TR Television. It's down to us, because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is voicing because of the fear factor, or the fear of further targeting, or the fear of whatever it may be, whatever line of fear that they think that is going to happen is preventing them from going, do you know what, I've had enough and I need to start expressing and telling everybody what's happened to me. But then
let me tell you why. Right, the reason they've targeted the first wave of whistleblowers is because they don't want them to be trailblazers, yeah? And the reason, they'll try and ridicule and shut people like yourself down is because they don't want you to be trailblazers, because what a trailblazer does, it shows others the way, yeah? So by you coming out and talking about your stuff and not caring what anybody thinks but getting it out there anyway, you're a trailblazer. And what you're doing is you're making it easier, first of all, for people to accept they're not going insane. Secondly, to join forces And to, and that's a really good point that you add, that people's experiences of targeting is on different levels.
Yeah.
So it's about everybody being open to, well, mine's a different level or a different extreme, but it's still occurring.
Well, you mean it's like, for example, we'll go back onto the implantation. There are there's a very, very high percentage of it's the only feasible way that they can actually get, it doesn't make sense how they can hit you without some kind of homing device. I like to think that most of us in the community have been hacked. Our bodies, our brains have been hacked. Now there is something that there's so many stories, there's so much proof out there of implantation. In America, there's been court cases that have been won and proved. That there was one that comes to mind where there was this gentleman and his 2 young children that had recently won a very, very large settlement, but they was forced to sign it up, I'm assuming, as some kind of like disclosure, whatever.
Yeah.
And since he's won his case, he's disappeared off of the face of the earth. But he went to court with X-rays of, his children had sort of like wires and implant, like real massive type implants, like throughout their whole body.
Wow.
Now, I don't understand. I don't understand the sort of person who would want to do that or put that into a person.
This is where we could go to another level. I sometimes doubt if they're human.
They can't all be psychopaths. How can they? They can't all be psychopaths. Surely not.
Well, right. So let's go back to the SRA. So we talk about satanic ritual abuse. So a few weeks ago, one of my favourite people is a guy called Jay Parker, and he's a survivor of satanic ritual abuse, and he was born into an intergenerational family of Satanists. Yeah. So it goes back generations. So even from being in the womb, what these the MK Ultra program or the targeting does to the SRA individuals is that from birth, they're constantly trying to put them in fear. From birth, they're constantly working at getting them to either sell the soul to become full cult, as Jay explained on the interview, or the ones who don't become full cult and literally sell the soul, they become the mind control subjects that are the ones that they want to be the next generation of perpetrators. Right. So what they do is they distort and fragment the personalities because the brain dissociates because the trauma.
The trauma, it's trauma-based mind control, yeah.
Yeah, so the trauma is just so massive that what happens is that a lot of them can't feel their emotions anymore because they've got such a fragmented brain and a disconnection to the humanness that they then become the next generation.
The next generation of psychopathic perpetrators, yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Because they've gone through so much. And the mind control, I met a lady from Austria. She's been on my show about a year and a half ago now, a lady called Andrea Sadek. And she believed she was actually created in a test tube. And She was actually created to be part of the control program. And her 2-year-old son was showing symptoms of trauma-based mind control because of what he was telling her. And she had the intuition to start recording, documenting, and actually identifying what he was going through. And the state took her child off her, right? So, and they actually literally do go for the bloodlines because there's like, even we take it simple biology, the DNA, the trauma is passed down in the DNA generation by generation by generation. So the more traumatized that generation of family is, the more the DNA sort of designs the same programs and coping mechanisms.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So if you think you've got these bloodlines that have gone back thousands of years, that have literally been engineered to have no empathy and no sympathy, yeah? So that's why they keep it within the bloodline. I actually think it's a bit deeper than that, and I'm open-minded to some of the stuff that David Icke talks about. I don't rule anything out anymore because we've been so lied to on so many levels that I'm open to that possibility too.
So when you talk about rabbit holes, when you're a targeted survivor within the targeting program, you're actually faced with a rabbit warren of holes.
Yeah.
That you feel so lost in the early days, and because you start doing all your research, and then you come up against all of these different theories on why you're targeted, and this is the reason why, and that's the reason why, and that's the reason why. I've researched a whole lot. I've been down every rabbit hole you can possibly imagine, and I choose to not enter one of them purely for the fact that my job is to expose, not only to help targets, not only to help heal and bring targets together, but also to expose the corruption, expose the targeting to the masses. Now, because it's such a secret program, because the technology that's used against us is so secret, how you need to, me personally, I need to remain in this reality. I need to remain on this real wood land, this world, because that's all that the public are going to understand. Anything more difficult than that, anything more detailed than that, is when they're going to start going, no, he's crazy. No, that's a conspiracy. No, I ain't having it, because they don't understand it. It's designed for them not to understand it.
And I don't disagree with you. And in my shows, I'll go into all kinds of things. I'll go to quantum physics and facts and hard science, and then I'll go to esoteric and metaphysical stuff, because, like you say, we've been lied to. I mean, the actual word occult means hidden knowledge, and the Masonic lodges practice occultism. Yeah. And that includes numbers, shapes, sizes, dates, locations, astrology. And the masses are told that it's all woo-woo and ridiculous. Yeah. But it's actually being used against the masses in every single aspect of our society.
And they only make it out to be woo-woo and sort of like non-realistic, whatever you, because, I mean, that's what they want. They need the masses to not wake up. They need the masses to go to look at something that maybe a target, maybe a fellow family member of a targeted person talks about, to remain woo-woo, to remain so unbelievable that the only logical explanation that family member can come up with is that my family member is going crazy.
Yes.
And because that's what they utilised. I mean, they used it with Brian Harvey. They've tried to use it with Seven. They've utilised it with me. They've utilised it with virtually every targeted survivor that I know. I mean,
and it's not just targeted. It's normal people. I know people.
Yeah.
We get called crazy if we start to look at anything.
I know single mothers that are targeted, that are blackmailed by the psychiatric services of this country.
Yeah.
That they don't take, and I'll pick one individual in question. She has actually now been forced to video herself taking psychotropic medication every morning and every evening. Otherwise, she doesn't get to see her daughter.
I actually watched a video literally yesterday about that was being done in America, and it was a lady who had adopted a child from, I think it was Romania, somewhere like that. The child had HIV. They made her take AZT, and then the parents of the adopted child realised that the AZT was making the little girl poorly, so they stopped taking it. When she became an adult, she had her own child. They forced the mother and the child to have AZT, otherwise they would have taken Child Protection Services would have taken the child off her, and they had to get her to film it morning and night taking that AZT, or else they would have taken her off her.
And this is the person and the woman that I'm talking about. I mean, she's targeted horrendously. I mean, so not only is she having to deal with the targeting, she's also having to deal with the mental fatigue that she's been sort of like been put on her. From this poison that she's been forced to video herself taking.
It's gross.
I mean, the psychiatric services, the mental health system in this country plays a massive, and I mean massive, part within the targeting program. I dread to think how many poor souls are in these sick and twisted, dark places that are locked up against their will, drugged up to the eyeballs because they are targeted.
Right, so there's a guy, a friend of mine, a lovely man called William King, Bill King, and he's literally had to leave the country. And the reason he's left the country, he used to put videos out because he got more gallons.
Right, okay.
Right? So he went to...
Bill King?
Yeah.
Is he? I didn't know he'd left the country, but I know that...
He's in Mexico right now.
Right, okay.
And he's been on the show before, and he's a lovely man. And literally people think he's crazy. They call him crazy. But he's actually literally pulled the fibres, put them under a microscope, showed them live. And he's absolutely, in my opinion, proven without doubt that he's not crazy. He's a sane man who's challenging this system that's trying to call him insane. And they're saying that it's delusional. And even though he's got the physical fibres and he's videoed it, they're still saying it's delusional. I mean, what's delusional there?
Well, this is the thing, you know. Even if you have, see, this is why it's so essential that the public are made aware of all of this stuff that's going on, because it doesn't matter how much evidence that you have got. I mean, like, we'll touch on where I've sent all of my evidence to. You know, it's gone to the highest place in the country. You know, I'm talking Downing Street, I'm talking the Home Office, I'm talking serious crime, right the way down to the, what are they called? The investigatory tribunal place, that are sort of like your last stop really in this country, the investigatory powers tribunal, which is your last stop really in this country before you're actually allowed to go and then start seeking some kind of recompense from the European courts of law, or the European courts of, like, human rights courts. So, I mean, the evidence that I've got is so damning against the establishment, so damning against what the police have done. It's factual. It's all evidence. Yeah, it's black and white evidence, you know, and it's all been denied. Every door has been shut in my face. So we cannot expect any help from the establishment. We
have to do it from a grassroots level.
It's got to come from the Joe public. You know, this is, and that's the reason why, you know, look at Brian Harvey. You know, he put that plea out to. I mean, that's where I found Brian. Somebody sent me the video saying, "Oh, Shane, do you think Brian's a targeted individual?" And I'm like, "Well, no, he's definitely not a targeted individual. He's a survivor." Then I started looking into his case, and it was just like, he has been targeted big time. There's no question. But the support that he has now got, now, that's one of the main reasons why I've jumped on his coattails, to be honest with you, because one, yeah, I can feel for the guy, and I understand what he's going through, and if anybody's going to get anybody to look out and listen, it's going to be somebody of the standing like Brian Harvey. Mm-hmm. Now, I know ex-Hollywood film actors. There's a guy in Canada called Steven Schellenberger, who was like a famous Hollywood actor up until the late 90s. You know, he was in films like with Nicolas Cage and Brad Pitt, and something happened. Something really nefarious happened. I'm not quite sure how it all started with him. I think it was monetary, some kind of money orientated. It would be, you know, the guy was a millionaire. He's now sort of like washing dishes to earn a crust because of the targeting, and he's a massive advocate for targeting over in the UK. He's just actually produced a film called The Spark about it's a feature film, but it basically documents the whole targeting program, but in such a fashion that any normal member of the public can start going, "Oh, that's strange and that's weird, and oh my God, you know, how's he been through that, and how's he dealt with that?" So I mean, the amount of high-profile targets that are coming forward, it's been a slow trickle, but Brian is the first one in the UK. He's literally the first high-profile targeted person in the UK to actually come forward and talk about his targeting. Now that must have taken such courage, and I mean courage. I mean, because if you're a snowflake and you're getting targeted, you're finished. Absolutely.
You know, the strength of that soul within that man that lives as Brian Harvey is so strong, and people can feel it. And you know, and this is the system's worst nightmare, because people are
even trying. I mean, I was at his court case down on.
I saw you were there,
yeah, on Friday. And there was a couple of what they called agent provocateurs turned up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were literally causing a ruckus in the public gallery inside the court.
Try and disturb it, yeah.
To cause him problems. I mean, like apparently the judge sort of like stood up and threatened to have everyone sort of ejected from the court if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And I mean, there was people that was trying to film in there, and it was just an absolute shocking experience for Brian. And what he's done now in his latest post out to the public, he's like, "I don't want anybody turning up for my next," because it got adjourned. So he has said, look, because he can't trust who's going to turn up. He doesn't know who's going to turn up. He doesn't know who's to go.
Which is sad, isn't it? Because the moral support and awareness raising is so crucial. And I get what he's saying, because obviously they're disrupting it and again making it like it's just hooligans.
Yeah.
Rather than people who are there with a genuine cause.
In that courthouse, they turned it into a circus, apparently. You know, I don't know. I stayed outside with another YouTuber that's supporting him, a guy called Wiz. He's got a channel called Solutions.
Yeah, I looked at some of his stuff.
He's an amazing guy. You know, I was actually chatting with him earlier on, and some of the stuff that Wiz is doing, he suffers and has suffered with anxiety and certain levels of depression and stuff. I mean, since the court case, I've been looking into what he's doing. He's doing some amazing work for people that are suffering with anxiety and depression in this country. These are the sort of people that are standing up for Brian Harvey. People like myself, people like Wiz, people like Amanda from Borderline Me, I think her channel's called. Obviously the port from Seven and all of these other people that are like standing in solidarity for Brian, because they can understand what's gone on and they know that it's all bullshit coming from the establishment.
I just wanted to say, like you were talking about, Brian's one of the most high profile because he was famous. He sold 22 million records. Yeah. But as I was interviewing Seven, it struck me because of the level of theft of the intellectual property that was stolen from that lady. Yeah. She would literally be one of the richest people on this planet right now.
Indeed.
And they've stolen that from her. And she would have done so much good with that. That's why they didn't want her to have it. Yeah. And
she's an amazing little lady. She's an absolutely amazing rock of a lady, but some of the stuff that they put her through and some of the evidence that she's put out there.
She's got reams and reams and reams.
Yeah. She's got image. I think the most disturbing thing that I saw her put out for was apparently there was some building work going on the outside of the property, the bit of the flat that she lived in. Yeah. And there was like a black hooded man standing on the scaffold, peering through a window, long enough for her to actually take a picture of him and then post it. And it's still, this is what I'm saying, it doesn't matter what evidence you've got. It doesn't matter what you can prove or how you can prove it.
It's changing.
I don't know whether it's changing quick enough. We're still, people's lives, we're losing people right, left.
But it is going in the right direction. And the reason I'm saying that, because I believe we create our reality. And it's really important that you believe it's changing, that Seven believes it's changing.
I do believe it's changing, but but you try and convince 200,000, 500,000 targeted survivors that it's changing when they are dealing with this bullshit 20.
Don't get me wrong.
Every day of the week, Joe. Seriously.
Honestly, and I want to just clarify this. I've had targeted people come back to me and tell me I would never understand how bad it's been for them. Because, and
unless you're targeted, unless you've experienced it, no disrespect to you, because I
get it.
There's no way that you can comment. You seriously cannot comment unless you've felt the wrath of these people. And I mean wrath. I mean, this is like the most. I had no idea that human beings could be this evil, Joe. Honestly, and I'm not saying, I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating.
Let me tell you what I've seen.
The worst evil that humanity will probably ever see.
Because I deal with SRA survivors and I hear their stories firsthand in therapy sessions, right? And it is unimaginable what they have put children through and what the adults recount. It's not human behaviour.
No, it's not.
It's beyond imagination. So I don't doubt that they can take it to that level with that because of what I've heard that they do in a ritual, what they do in a sacrifice, what they do when they're abusing these children. And they do it on a mass scale with a pure intention to mind control the children.
I've come across it. I'll give you another example. I know of a really brave lady that lives down in the Devon area. She has been hit with all sorts of stuff that's caused so many problems for her health. But also now her 14-year-old teenage daughter is now she's got so many ailments. She has daily nosebleeds. She has problems with her eyesight. This is a 14-year-old child that they're targeting her mother, but because she's in the crossfire, she's getting the effects of it as well. But this is what I don't understand. These people that are doing this technology, this microwave radiation that they're firing at some of us people, it doesn't just target us. It targets everyone around us. It targets the next door neighbours. If they've got children next door, they're going to start having problems. It's such.
I'm going to make a statement now.
Sickening thing, Joe. Really, honestly.
Right. The statement I'm going to make now is they don't just not value human life. They've got to despise it because what they do to children and to vulnerable people, the unimaginable. I'm not going to share it on air because I don't want to recount other people's stories, but honestly, I sometimes wonder how I can handle hearing what I've actually heard. And I know it's true because I've heard it recounted on so many occasions from people. They don't. People won't make that shit up.
What you've got to ask yourself is, why would somebody want to make that sort of shit up? Why
They
would
wouldn't.
you can't make this up. It's impossible. It's impossible to make it up, but it is also possible to prove what is going on. I mean, it's because of, it's going back to what I initially said at the beginning of this interview. I mean, the program is so limited. It's so limited. And you can't have so many members of the human race all experiencing the same thing and not actually realise and understand that what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got every government that in the Western world that knows that this targeting program is being carried out in their country, because one, it's being funded, and it's probably being funded from people like me and you that pay taxes. I mean, because I work and I still pay taxes and I still pay VAT through the company, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the money that is being siphoned off of the populace of the country is being utilised by the military, by whoever, to destroy them same people. It's mind-boggling.
We're paying for our own destruction.
We're paying for our own demise. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really.
But on another thing, shifting it back to the awakening that's going on right now, because the sheer volume of people coming forward with the same stories, because a lot of people. So, for example, years ago when I put something on Facebook about chemtrails, geoengineering, I literally got attacked verbally and called a nut job and told I needed to be taken off in an ambulance because it was just condensation trails and I was the nutter.
Yeah.
There's a shift because people who used to roll their eyes at me are now signposting other people to me for information, or they're sharing things with me, or more people are liking the things. If I share something on Facebook that would be completely ignored, more are liking it and acknowledging it, or mentioning it, or privately messaging me.
And that's fine, and that's perfect. But I mean, then we need boots on the ground. We need humans. We need, the online things. That is fine, and it's good for connecting, and it's good for what we're doing here tonight. But as a resolution, we need human to human connections. We need. We need people to unite together. We need people to start, because if we don't start uniting as a community, as we call ourselves, especially in the target community, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change.
So I'll tell you where there's a challenge, and it's not that it can't be overcome, but it's an obvious challenge for me. So, when I mentioned that when I spoke to targeted people before, they have not had trust for me, and I don't blame them because it's perfectly understandable. Because
humanity away from.
Yeah, I mean, I was bullied at school, so I used to get paranoid. I used to think people were talking about me, and they might not be because I was being bullied. So I can't imagine what it must have been like to have the kind of targeting to the level that you and others have experienced. And then the challenge you've got, if you get two unhealed people, they're unhealed because they've not healed the traumas of what they've experienced. They still can't discern who to trust and who not to trust. And then they start to distrust each other. So when you get sort of, the targeted community together, it's more likely, or it's much easier to disrupt the harmony in that, because there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. So it's the healing.
We have to be so careful about who we allow in. You know what I mean? Because, and I hate to say it, but I mean, we won't take a testimony from an unstable target survivor because they're no good. I'm not saying they're no good as a person, but they've not got to that level of, like you would say, they've not healed to the level where they can be stable, where they can give a good account of what's happened to them in a rational and realistic.
Because you need to maintain your credibility, because you want the credibility so that people will listen to you. Yeah, I get that. Because
otherwise you just have the crazy card chucked at you, which is what their biggest weapon against the target survivor, or anybody that's targeted, whether you be an SRA survivor, whether you be a whistleblower, whether you be a person that's been targeted and victimized and persecuted by, like I have for a couple of decades, is it's just. You know what, Joe? So much of this stuff just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense at all, and it's so,
because it's so far from who you are, Shane. You're a decent human being, and that's why it doesn't make sense. And that's why the cognitive dissonance exists across humanity, because they can't grasp how someone else can actually do what they've done.
So how can the system? Getting back to what I just mentioned about their biggest weapon. How on earth are they allowed to utilise the mental health system? Let's take, for instance, here in the UK, to clear up all of their garbage that they have created, all of the lives.
So let me
all of the lives that they have persecuted and victimised to the point where the person literally, if for instance, the person does get to the stage where they have healed enough to be able to be coherent and actually get their story out in a really rational fashion, they'll just send the hit squad round. You'll be carted off on a 136, as they call it here in the UK, and you'll be probably never be seen again, or you will never be the same person again, because they will dose you up with so much poison that there's another one gone, another little tick box onto the next one. And
so it's not right, and this is worldwide. So, and I've got to be careful because somebody I know is going through some court proceedings around this, so I can't mention names. But I'm going to give you a scenario about the typically doing it. So someone I know is a very qualified psychotherapist. They have 3 different degrees in psychotherapy. They've been doing it for over 40 years. And they've been calling SRA out for what it really is. And they've been gaining public attention by doing that. What's happened? The system in the country that she's in has taken her license off her. Accused her of false memory implants into people, and her license has gone off her. So now this lady, with all this years of experience, with all that knowledge, can't even call herself a therapist.
Because they decided that they wanted her out of the way.
Because she was credible.
It's not just, and it's not just, look at the, there was a spate of holistic doctors a couple of years ago. There was suicide in
still happening.
There was suicide in their dozens. In their dozens. And it was just like, but nobody out there actually puts the connection there and realises, well, why is there so far this year 40 top level holistic doctors that are against the big pharma? Because that's where it all comes down. It all comes down to money.
I shared on Facebook 2 days ago a holistic doctor, I think she's in Thailand or somewhere around that region, where they threatened to close her down. She told them she was standing strong. Then they threatened the lives of her children and her family. So she did a declaration that she was temporarily closing the clinic. Now she uses natural medicines that are having amazing results for people. She has 3 million followers.
Because they don't earn any money out of that, do they? Big pharma doesn't earn any money out of a natural remedy. See, this is another thing that people don't understand. Your health as a human being is messed around with as soon as you're born. As soon as they chuck that poison in you, they don't allow that. The human body is an amazing thing. It's got all of the capabilities of being able to heal itself. And if there is an ailment, then whoever created this planet of ours, the cure for all of that is out there somewhere. Whether it be a nettle, whether it be a dandelion, whether it be whatever, valerian root or whatever you want to call it. So they don't earn any money from that. Because it's all about money. It's all about money and control. That is ultimately what it boils down to.
And also putting lids on the truth. Labelling people as nut jobs who are telling the truth and putting them into institutions so the truth doesn't get out, so they can continue with the bad practices. It's
like they're dusting. I dread to think what's underneath that big old dusty carpet in Westminster. Look what's going. Do you know what I mean? It's just all of these paedophile rings and all of this sort of stuff in the echelons of the people that are running the country. And then you've got our unelected, disgraceful, shameful Prime Minister, Theresa May, travelling around the world, making out that everything's rosy and blah, 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 spending £3 billion on warships that we'll never use. And yet we've got children that are starving. Did you know that there's actually a charity now called for young teenagers, where young teenage girls, where they can't afford to buy sanitary products? There's even adverts. There's even adverts on TV now. Families have not got the money to buy sanitary products for their young teenage girls. So now there's people that are bringing up making charities to actually sort that problem out. And what on earth is going on in this country of ours?
I say it's always darkest before the dawn. So what's coming up right now, is...
It's pretty dark at the moment, Joe, I can assure you.
Well, the light is being shined on it. And Right, you've been in this game for a long time, and I've not experienced it from the level you have, but for the past 7 years, I've had an insatiable appetite to know the truth, never this willingness to look at it and call it out for what it is, and stand by people like yourselves, because I trust my intuition on things like this. And what I can see is a shift, right? And I genuinely think there are too many, this is Kathy O'Brien's words, too many fires for them to stamp out, too many lids for them to put back on.
The damage control is getting uncontrollable, yeah.
Yeah, and because I believe now the ones in those positions that were in power, they're running around like headless chickens.
Yeah.
They're hanging on by the fingernails, and they're trying to stamp that fire out and that fire out. And then people like yourself, like Seven, like Brian, and there's going to be more and more young trailblazers.
And people like you, Jo, because if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't, and that, again, I've got to thank Brian Harvey for. Because if I hadn't have been sort of like supporting Brian Harvey through my videos, you probably would have never come across me.
No, I wouldn't. It was just like I got to my attention because I'd followed his YouTube page because I'd seen the cry for help like you had.
Yeah. So ultimately, this interview tonight, this whole conversation has come from Brian Harvey, off of the back of the suffering and the persecution and the targeting that Brian Harvey has experienced for probably half of his life, or 15 or 20 odd years, is the reason that we're sitting here having this conversation now.
So on that note, because we're coming towards the end of the show, it's gone so fast, this. My shows always go fast. So what I want to do is, first of all, I want to make sure we signpost people to your TI television.
Yeah.
But also, I think one of the things you talked about, boots on the ground. And for me, what's really important, there's several things. One is that we stop attacking each other and start to stand together.
Yeah.
And I think if anything's going to bring us together, in a society, it's the children. Okay. So once people start to understand what's being done to the children of our society, and now a lot of them adults in our society, I think that will unify the majority of people.
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. I think that is probably the only thing that is going to wake the sleeping masses up to the realities of what is going on around them. Is the children. Children are the future, aren't they?
Yeah. So I don't share my stuff to horrify people. I don't particularly like looking at the stuff I've looked at. But I know, looking away from it, it's been going on while we've looked away, and that hasn't stopped it. Yeah. Being fearful of it won't stop it, because that's what they want us to do, is to be in fear. What we do is we look it head on and believe that we can change it. Okay. And we change it.
Because we can change it. We can change it, but it's just on. See the importance and the urgency from my point of view. We're talking about human lives here. We're talking about people that are committing suicide, that are being forced to kill themselves because a bunch of degenerate, low-life scumbags think that it's funny, think it's a game, that person then kills themselves because of the persecution and the targeting that they've encountered. That is the urgency from my point of view. So this awakening, this great sort of like light, that it needs to hurry up. Somebody needs to put 50p in the meter and get it out there. Seriously. So, the reality of this. People had one in London last week on a test shout, because we've got a helpline, we've got a UK survivors database where we get people to email me through. And on that note, if anybody, there's get a lot of people that probably won't want to comment under the YouTube video, that I'm assuming this will go out on YouTube or wherever it's going to go out. So if anybody wants to contact me, then please email me direct, Shane Gibbs 212@gmail.com. I'll respond to you as soon as I possibly can. My YouTube channel is called Shane Gibbs, Targeted Individual from the UK. You can find me there. You can contact me there. You can find me on Facebook. You can also contact me there. You can contact me through our website, www.ti-television.com. So there is lots and lots of avenues. There's lots and lots of points of contact that people can actually contact me directly without having to leave a public presence, which is quite important for a lot of people, because there's so much fear out there. People will literally, they will not get onto it and post on a public platform.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
But I want them to be. For me, I want them to contact me. Then in 6 months' time, they're going to be able to do that and find and rebuild their humanity, to be able to go, do you know what? I am going to do that, and I'm going to do my testimony, and I'm going to put my video out there, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. That is what I need to do. That is.
You know what I can see, Shane? I'm a strategist. I always think it's bigger picture stuff. This is just the start of your journey. What you're going to be, you are going to be doing so much to help this group of people, right? And you know, just the fact that there's a place where I can personally signpost people to, because even as a therapist, I mean, I'd say I've dealt with some SRA stuff, and it's horrific. But I found the TI community, a much more difficult one, because the level of trust that's been knocked out of them, and the day in, day out experiences.
And that's the benefit of me being in the position that I'm at, because I've lived this nightmare. I've lived through this nightmare. I've lived through the murder attempts, and the poisonings, and the home invasions, and the sectionings, and the police. I've been through the whole lot. And I'm a little bit of a rough diamond, a little bit rough at the edges. But
we're all human beings.
As Brian Harvey says, I keep it real. People can relate to me, because I don't go off on these little tangents about this and tangents about that, and try and make out that I'm some technically savvy, highly intelligent survivor of a target program, because I'm not. I'm just me. And this basically, all it boils down to, what these people are doing is wrong, Joe. There's no rocket science behind working out what this is all about. It's a case of wrong and right, and what these people are doing is wrong. And I will shout, and I will help, and I will assist as long as I possibly have to or need to help these people through this. And
we are far stronger than even we have ever realised as a collective. And that's really, I think, a good positive note to leave this interview on. It's been great talking to you. I'm really, really quite surprised how fast this 2 hours has gone. But I'm sure we could have gone on a little bit longer. But thank you. Okay, anything you want to share? Anything you want to share at any point in the future? You get in touch with me. We'll get you back on. We'll schedule you back on the show. So if there's any further information or important information or way of gathering people or events you're putting on, you just tell me. And quite happy to share this platform with you. I do a weekly update video on my YouTube channel. So I tend to keep, because that's how important this is. People need a point of reference. People need to have somebody to go, right, because if I miss a weekly one of my weekly updates, I'm getting like dozens of emails. Is everything right, Shane? Where's your video? What's going on? You say blah 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 blah. So people need this information. People need this point of contact. And I can only sort of thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to come on and speak with you this evening. Seriously, you don't have to thank me. I just feel like it's one of my callings. One's a wellness centre to help people heal naturally. The other one is get this information out and get trailblazers like yourself to share your information. This show's not about me. It's about the people who come on this show with amazing information. So thank you for all that you do. Thanks for your bravery and for standing up to them and showing how powerful you are as a human. Oh yeah, they can't touch me. There's not a lot more they can do to me if they haven't done already. So onwards and upwards. That's the only way forward I can do. Yeah, that's great. Thank you ever so much, and good night, everybody. Take care.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments, are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lady Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.